I'm too nostalgic, I'll admit it.
We graduated 4 months ago. What can you possibly be nostalgic for?
I'm nostalgic for conversations I had yesterday. I've begun reminiscing events before they even occur. I'm reminiscing this right now. I can't go to the bar because I've already looked back in it in my memory, and I didn't have a good time.
Welcome back to the Thinking Critical Comic Book Podcast. It's time for another comic book retrospective. We're going to Marvel. We're going to the Incredible Hulk, issues 297 through 300. Very interesting stuff here. I know initially, Eric Breen, you weren't exactly fond of this story. This is where the Hulk, essentially loses his banner.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of the events leading up to it because when I came into the hobby, it was Hulk Smash, and we'd had that, and you go back and read other years prior to that, it was Hulk Smash, and we finally got to see, with the exception of What If issue 2, what it would be like for the Hulk to have Bruce Banner's brain for a protracted amount of time, and I was really sorry to see that go. But that was then, and this is now.
Looking back on it much more fondly. I know you read it a couple times. This thing is absolutely fantastic. We've got who's the writer? Bill Mantlo. Artists are Sal Buscema, Gary Talak. Really great stuff here. Why isn't Bill Mantlo credited as being one of the great Hulk writers, Eric? Why does everyone always kind of go to Peter David route?
Well, I think, and Joe and I were talking about that a minute ago. It's Bill Mantlow's entire career seems to get lost in the shuffle. And when we're talking about great runs in the 80s, we obviously mentioned Miller's Daredevil, Thor, Simonson's Thor, Byrne and Claremont's X-Men, then Byrne's Fantastic Four, and we've gone on to include Denny O'Neil's Iron Man, Roger Stern's Avengers, and yet we didn't mention this. So I guess I'm as guilty of it as anybody. Sometimes you have to go back and revisit something to make you realize how good something was. And I like everything Mantlow's ever done, but I think this might be his best work and it deserves inclusion when we talk about this great 80s runs.
Absolutely.
So what is it about Bill Mantlo? Was he just not flashy enough? Was he just kind of flew under the radar? Did he just happen to be writing at his peak at the wrong time to where he kind of was overshadowed by some other creators doing fantastic work on other bigger characters? Joe?
I think there's some of that. I mean, they're overall with the 80s, the British invasion, people like Alan Moore and Grant Morrison coming in really overshadowed a lot of the workhorses that were doing a lot of the best stuff there. Like, it's that coupled with Claremont, who in a way was kind of an early British invasion, but what was going on with the X titles, what was going on with people like Alan Moore and all that, especially looking back now. Like, I'm talking about, looking at this in hindsight, less so than at the moment. They've completely overshadowed your Roger Sterns, your J.M. DeMatteis's, your Bill Mantlows, and your Mark Grunwalds. So it kind of falls in there. And, unfortunately and tragically, I think a lot of the people listening to this probably already know, but, Bill Mantlo was hit by a car back in 1992 and suffered severe head trauma that he lives with to this day. He has a very difficult life that in the past, his family has reached out for some support. So we were also robbed of, potential future Bill Mantlo coming back and maybe doing stuff. I think he had already left the comic industry more or less at that point. But there could have been a resurgence. He could have potentially come back, but we'll never know.
Very interesting stuff here. What's going on in the comic industry? We visited this era before, Joe, but remind us what's going on in 1984 when this 4-issue story arc is kind of released.
Oh, geez. Well, we've got really solid Batman stuff going on at this point. This is when Doug Menck had taken over, and Don Newton and Gene Colan on primary arts, bouncing back and forth between Detective and Batman. In terms of Marvel, we are like right when Hulk 300 comes out is the return of Barry Windsor-Smith to the X-Men with Life Death. So, we have that going on. There are, I'm trying to think, what was it?
We got
Avengers.
Rom going on around this point too. Everyone wants us to talk about Rom.
Oh, for sure. No, but we're leading up to Captain America 300. We're almost there at this point. And that's some exciting stuff. It's basically, I think, wrapping up J.M. DeMatteis's run on that book. Fantastic Four, we're in the John Byrne run. So you got that going on. You got some interesting other sort of licensed books out there. You've got the Indiana Jones comic is coming out. You got obviously, you saw Micronauts ROM. You have the Last Starfighter comic is coming out.
I didn't even know about that. I gotta go check that out.
Right? I my grandpa had me watch.
I love that movie.
Watch that when I was little. Yeah. No, for sure. But Power Pack, I think, launches right around when 297 comes out. I think that's right when it launched. So, and that's something that's coming back again. But that's really, part of, the launch of Wheezy's writing career coming up with Power Pack, because, X Factor hasn't come out yet at this point. So yeah, there's really a lot of interesting stuff. We're in the middle of the Tom DeFalco, Ron Friends run on Spider-Man, which is something else we might have to figure out talking about, because that is so deeply underappreciated and ignored. And it's entirely because it's sandwiched between Roger Stern and then David Michelinie being joined by Todd McFarlane. So, people read that and then they just skip right over to, they skip over to Kraven's Last Hunt, and then they go into the David Michelinie, Todd McFarlane run. But there's all this really great stuff in the middle that gets ignored. And
we might see that version of Spider-Man in this comic.
We might. We just might. But yeah, no, really interesting stuff is happening all over. I mean, this is the height of the Legion of Superheroes. There's a lot going on there. You have 2 books of the Legion at this point. You have Legion of Superheroes, Tales of Legion of Superheroes. One of the annuals comes out around now. This is when Karen Berger is at the helm and was part of, the success of this and the success of the New Talent book that they were putting out, which found people, I believe it found Barbara Kiesel, Mindy Newell, Malcolm Jones III, and some others. That was another thing Karen was big on. So this is all laying the groundwork for what would eventually become Karen's, ascent in DC and, taking the reins of Vertigo.
Absolutely. Now, before we get to the comic breed, I do want to talk about Sal Buscema. Whenever we do these, we go back in the Wayback Machine to Marvel, we see the Buscema name come up. Sal Buscema is one of them. He might not be the flashiest artist of this time for Marvel Comics, but he puts out some damn good work. He's a very good sequential storyteller. My only issue here, Breen, I know you're going to scold me for this. I don't think he's got the greatest Hulk I've ever seen. He's a little too human-like in this.
Well, that's true, but up to this point, he'd been drawing the Hulk as basically a larger version of Bruce Banner. Mm-hmm. And the Hulk has always been, his size has always been in relation to the artist, it seems. And Buscema, you're right. You could say the Hulk seemed a little shorter, a little less massive. Now, also, in Sal's defense, you've probably been exposed to more modern versions of the Hulk where he is the size of a small city. Yeah. And they're really, back in the day, if you're reading back then, Herb Trimp's Hulk wasn't nearly as massive as he would go on to become. And Sal just kind of followed the template that had been set before him, because he replaced Trimp on the book and drew him for about I don't know, 70, 80, 90 issues. He was there forever. So it's, your point is well taken, but I said he was kind of the house Hulk artist by then. So that was kind of the way he looked, everywhere at that time.
And whenever we go do these things, Joe, we always see the Buscemas, and Sal Buscema is definitely one of those names that always pops up. The man has been, part of so many important and really legendary comic runs.
Oh, yeah. I think one of the ones that people listening to, even if you haven't gone back to the 70s, I think a lot of people have read Walt Simonson's Thor run, and Sal Buscema was the fill-in artist and then took over the book for, I think, like the last year of that run. So that's what people, if you haven't dipped back to the latter end of the Silver Age and through the 70s, Bronze Age and all that, you might, know Sal mostly through that. But Sal's all over we've discussed Sal before when we did Avengers Defenders War. But yeah, he's done a lot. The Buscemas seem to, you had the Buscemas, you had John Romita, people like that who all kind of stepped up to the plate when they lost people like, Kirby and Ditko. So, and they ended up being around a lot longer and making massive contributions to Marvel. And the Buscemas and Romita kind of became just that kind of house style for Marvel for a long time.
The last thing I want to talk about are the covers here, Eric Breen. I think covers today on comics for the most part are disappointing, but we've got some fantastic covers. The first one I think is from Bill Sienkiewicz. 299 is from Frank Sirocco, and Brett Blevins does 300. But 298 is my favorite one here. That one's from Kevin Nolan, and we basically get Nightmare. He's like the puppet master over a Hulk. I've never seen the cover before. No one's ever showed it to me as like their favorite comic cover, and I'm shocked I haven't, because that cover is dope.
Well, this might come as a shock to our younger viewers, but once upon a time, they used the cover to let you know what you were going to find within the printed pages.
Yes.
And you can just look at any of the 4 covers in this and know exactly what you're going to get. It's something that by and large has been forgotten in modern comics. They've given way to basically pin-ups and poster material, and which is really unfortunate because you kind of need a reason to pull the book off the shelf. And I said, I guess now you see an Alex Ross cover and you might get that, and then when you look through the book and you realize that you probably shouldn't have opened it and just bought it and put for the cover alone. These told you what you were going to get. And like I said, and these 4, great examples of that. I think my favorite is the Hulk in Doctor Strange, face to face. That's probably my favorite of the
299.
4.
That's a good one.
Yeah. You can't go wrong with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're all great. Even that 297, just Hulk with the, standing in the water and the reflection, and he's screaming in the reflection. That's great.
Yeah. Bill Sienkiewicz, obviously, still working in the industry today.
Oh, yeah.
One of the more, I don't know if he's influential. Some people have tried to ape his style, but Bill's so unique to himself. He's almost tried. It's hard to kind of recreate everything he did, but that's a very good cover. So I definitely wanted to acknowledge that. I knew I would forget about it once we get into the story, but there are some great covers in these comic books.
Oh yeah.
And that will bring us into Incredible Hulk number 297, titled "Sleep My Child," from writer Bill Mantlo, artist Sal Buscema and Gary Tolak. And essentially, at the beginning here, Breen, S.H.I.E.L.D. has learned that Hulk has reverted to his savage state, and he's destroying a small mountain community. And we get S.H.I.E.L.D. agents Gabe Jones and former Banner assistant / S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Kate Waynesboro are going to move in and try and halt the destruction. But along the way, Kate makes it very clear she does not want anything to jeopardize Banner's life. And then we get essentially what we saw on the cover there. After the destruction's over, Hulk sees his reflection in the mirror, and he realizes he's no longer a hero. And he just starts pummeling this mountainside. There's a great opener here, Brate. really sets the tone of what we're going to see in the comic story.
Yeah, because up to this point, they had developed a relationship, Bruce and Kate Waynesboro. And, he was slowly losing his humanity in the several issues leading up to this. In fact, there's a really cool thing that's worth mentioning. The cover boxes, each issue shows the regression. And it's kind of heartbreaking as it unfolds. And then by this time, 297, he has basically reverted back to the Hulk smash persona, but an angrier, more, the difference, they point out, I said, instead of being the monster that had to be provoked to fight back, this one is starting them. Mm-hmm. So it's Danger Will Robinson time, and it's hard for Kate to come to terms with that because she's in love with Bruce Banner, and to see him slowly slip away to the point to where it's pie in the face obvious to everybody else. He has to be stopped, but she's kind of like late to that party for obvious reasons. You don't want to see someone you love have to be put down, but it's become obvious at this point that we're at that point.
And we see like the mental fabric of Hulk himself kind of unraveling. He's having a dream, and Bruce Banner is scolding him for the destruction he's caused. And then the Avengers arrive, Fantastic Four, Betty Ross, Rick Jones, Kate Waynesboro herself, and they take turns like kind of mocking him and calling him Monster Joe, and really just kind of reiterating the fact that he's become a base version of himself. He no longer has that higher function of Bruce Banner. And when he finally sees Doctor Strange in his dream, Strange actually comes to him like as a friend and offers to help. And when he wakes up, he realizes he's going to go find Doctor Strange, and he's either going to help him and fix him, or he's going to kill Doctor Strange. That kind of gets us onto our journey here, Joe. Very cool stuff. And like I said earlier, that Sal Buscema isn't the flashiest artist, but the dream sequence was absolutely brilliant.
No, I mean, this whole bit, the dream sequence, setting up for the next issue, like, I'm not going to say that it's exactly on par with, like, what Alan Moore was doing with Swamp Thing at the, around the time, but this is the kind of stuff that I think people acted like Marvel wasn't doing. This is really trippy, cerebral. There's elements that are kind of like horror going through this, seeing, all
he's
that.
Like deconstructing and he's realizing what a monster is. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think people give this run or this era a lot of credit with the Hulk. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of people act like, Al Ewing created body horror in the Hulk and things like that. And, I'm not saying that's something that, Al Ewing is the reason for that. It's, people don't know. They heard, Immortal Hulk's good. They pick it up. They check it out. They're like, oh, this body horror element and all that stuff. But, Al Ewing is being, pretty knowledgeable of different eras of the Hulk and is incorporating a lot of that into it. And, this clearly being one of them.
Absolutely. Then finally, at the end of this, Breen, we get this big reveal of what's going on here, at least a precursor to what's going on. We see this character, Nightmare. He lives in the Netherworld dimension. Who the hell's Nightmare? Is this his first appearance? I don't think it is. Where did he come from?
I'll answer that question. Nightmare, he's a dick. No, he's one of the rogues gallery of villains in Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
he's on par with Baron Mordo and probably a notch below Dormammu. But Nightmare has been a thorn in Doctor Strange's side, going back to the early Ditko days.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, this is par for the course for him. But as we're going to find out, what I called him is absolutely the truth when we realize as this story unfolds. So yeah, that's your big reveal for this issue, and it's like, holy crap! I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
No, something's wrong, and then they, for them to give the little tease at the end, that brings us into Hulk 298. It's called Sleepwalker, And we've got some fourth wall breaking here, Joe Corallo. Nightmare starts talking to the fans, to the reader. He introduces himself, and he kind of goes in to describe his hatred for Doctor Strange. And apparently, what he's saying, Doctor Strange is actually the one that's preventing him from physically walking in the world. So he's retaliating by attacking Strange's allies, obviously right now including Hulk. And his nightmares are what are plaguing Hulk and has resulted in Banner losing control and Hulk reverting to this pure state of savagery. It wasn't even intentional. He didn't even know it was going to happen, Joe.
No, and there's some really great, disturbing art through this. Like this is a visually engaging way to do an exposition dump at the beginning of an issue, and introduce an audience who maybe you're not following Doctor Strange, maybe you don't know about Nightmare, so they're, all explaining that to you, that this is during the shooter era where they do make it a point to explain a lot of things. But one of my favorite bits here, that page 6, where, he's getting into like Bruce Banner's dreams, and it's just this like disgusting, like it's like this ooze or whatever on Bruce Banner's like head, and it's like he's like sucking it, like it's really gross and great.
It is very gross. And it's kind of continues on what we're talking about here, Breen, is the fact that Hulk can no longer control himself, and he's become the aggressor. He kind of he's going on his trek. He's looking for Doctor Strange. He comes upon like a pool party, and it's pretty crazy. There's like some serious 80s level horror vibes to this thing, where he's kind of watching them, and you can see the kind of the young people playing around or anything. Obviously, he attacks them. We get Gabe Jones and Kate Waynesboro are tipped off to the attack. They show up. They try to hit him with a gamma gun to stop him. No effects. And then we do see Kate is able to momentarily calm Hulk down, and he becomes Bruce Banner. But almost just as quickly, he turns back into the Hulk. He brushes them both aside, and he goes back onto his trek for Strange. So Bruce is still in there somewhere. And Kate was able to bring him out momentarily, but it's Hulk is still definitely in control and more dangerous than ever.
Yeah. Now, before that, I want to go back to the pool scene for a second. I love the part where he comes in and someone said, "Ron, it's the Hulk." And the guy goes, "No, it's nothing to worry about. He's a good guy now." And then he goes, "Was it something I said?" But for people that have been reading DC comics at the time, you're used to seeing stuff like this. But when the Hulk rips the pool out of the ground and basically tips it over with the people in it, and then lifts the pool to get, it knocks the electricity to where he fries himself or what have if he wasn't the Hulk. These are just so visually stunning because, again, if you read DC, you see Superboy playing billiards with planets. But Marvel was always more grounded. So to me, it was always more impressive like this, or in that issue of the Avengers when they show Wonder Man holding up a skyscraper that's tilted, because it's almost like, no, it's not believable, but in comic book terms it is. And those pages are just like, holy crap. But getting back to Kate and Bruce, Bruce is able to reassert control for just the briefest moment one more time. And then it's almost like you realize when he goes run, because he knows as soon as he turns back, it's over. He's not coming back after that. And, I said it's because it's a code approved comic that, Kate wasn't, knocked into literal pieces. Yeah. Because, yes, there's that. And when he belts Gabe Jones around, but, and also one other thing I want to point out, they make it a point to mention Nick Fury's absence because he was involved in a miniseries that was being put together at the time. And again, modern stories, they wouldn't have paid any attention to that. But in the shooter era, you used what was available that month because he knew where all the pieces fit. Yeah, another, another thing about this story that kind of made it, just a little bit neater.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that gets us into Incredible Hulk 299. Strange days have found us. And Hulk is coming to your neighborhood, Joe. Yeah. He's forcing his way through the Lincoln Tunnel in New York. I believe we've got like the New Jersey state troopers are out there.
Yeah.
The SHIELD agents Jones and Waynesboro arrive once again. And Jones finally he orders the troopers to shoot on sight. Despite Kate still protesting that she doesn't want him to die. They try to gas him in this tunnel. No avail. Hulk easily escapes, but he's a little tired, so he falls asleep. And then Nightmare visits him again, reminds him that he needs to go find Doctor Strange, potentially destroy him. And then Shield attempt the gamma gun again. I don't know why. Pushes him aside, emerges in the tunnel. He leaps into Central Park, and he's confronted by this adamantium statue that's been erected in his honor because he is a hero now, Joe. And once again, he's realizing that he's not who he was not that long ago.
Oh, yeah. And all these pages, just it's terrifying. Like, Sal Buscema really makes Hulk look like a monster, especially once you get to, pages 6, 7, 8, where he's walking through the fire, in the tunnel and all that. It's really something. And obviously, the falling asleep to, bring Nightmare back in. But, another point that I'm thinking of as I'm going over this again, there was something about the shooter era for a while where it was about reinventing and reinvigorating a lot of these characters, doing stuff to make everything move forward. And you'd see, it's not Betty Ross who has the crush on the Hulk right now that we're seeing. It's Kate. In Captain America, they moved to Bernie Rosenthal. In Spider-Man at the time, it wasn't clear-cut that he was definitely going to be marrying Mary Jane a few years from then. There was still that nebulous, what are we going to do from here? So it's interesting when you look at that and then you jump forward. It's almost like everything regressed and they went back to, Cap wanting to be with, one of the Carters, whatever, as long as your last name's Carter, or, going back to Betty Ross and stuff like that. So it's interesting that you see comics made these efforts to stay relevant, stay interesting, to switch things up. And then they backpedaled in a way that I think ultimately hurt the brands long term.
That's a video for another day. We can actually get one out of it because Batman, Catwoman, anyone? But there's something I wanted to bring up. I think to me, maybe the most important part of these 4 issues is on page 7 of this one, where he's walking out of the tunnel. Nightmare, you can see in the background laughing, and then there's one line where it just says, "Thus, Bruce Banner's happiness was sacrificed for Nightmare's revenge." All of this, it had nothing to do with Bruce Banner. That he accomplished what he did. That was just kind of like icing on the cake. This was all to stick it to Doctor Strange. Yep. And I think that when that revelation right there that we all knew, but that just kind of like hammers it home. It's like, again, what a dick.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. So we see Hulk Breed is angered at the sight of this statue. He tries to destroy it. Obviously, it's indestructible, and he finally arrives at Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum. He's unable to break into the building because it's protected. But Strange eventually hears the commotion. He goes out there and he takes the Eye of Agamotto and he kind of probes him with it, and it reveals Nightmare's presence. And Strange is able to free Bruce out from within the Hulk's mind, and he finally comes out. Very cool stuff. He's been seeking out Doctor Strange. And it feels like he immediately fixes it, but ends up not being the case, Bree.
No, and can we just take a second to realize just how powerful Doctor Strange is? When you think about all of the issues, all that have led up to a rampage that can't be stopped, nobody can stop him. Doctor Strange kind of goes and is able to stop him in his tracks long enough to have that conversation where he realizes that Bruce has retreated so far back into his psyche. He goes, "I'd rather not live than share my existence with the Hulk any longer." And that's when he realizes that, the best he can hope for now is to, basically protect the world from the Hulk because, like I said, Bruce Banner's basically, as Stephen Strange points out, chosen to die with dignity.
We get a pretty crazy set of events here, Joe, where basically Bruce transforms into the Hulk inside of his own mind to kind of attack Nightmare. And then Bruce, as Breen mentioned, he's finished with Hulk. He doesn't want to have anything to do with it, but so he kind of commits psychic suicide to where he removes himself. So you only have Hulk, and he's completely unencumbered. He's got no mind. He's got no memory, and he's 100% savage. And then at this point, Doctor Strange himself is even unable to stop Hulk from escaping.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that is more or less like kind of what people like Alan Moore were doing with Swamp Thing. Like, really stretching the ideas of what you could do with the character. And it's crazy this kind of stuff has been memory holds for a lot of people. Because if you had Al Ewing, I'm not trying to pick on him, it's just that he was just doing Immortal Hulk. Mm-hmm. If he put out this same issue, people today would just be like, oh, this is revelatory.
5 stars at the best comic of the year.
Yeah, this was, oh my God, I can't believe, someone thought to do that with the Hulk. And it's like, it's that kind of stuff that can get frustrating, I think, for long-term readers, because this is just on, this is like on another level for what people assume was going on at that time, because they haven't bothered to go and check.
And the cool thing, Breen, is we're heading up to Hulk 300. Obviously, that's a milestone issue, and this feels like a big deal. This is a game changer. They're always promising, this is going to upset the status quo. It'll never be the same before. He's actually executing it here. He's giving you, Bill Mantlo and Sal Buscema are giving you what you would expect leading up to this big milestone where we're finally going to get these big characters that try to intervene and stop him. And, that's how you do it, right?
Yeah. This is where 59-year-old me tells 22-year-old me that he was wrong. Because I said I was salty as a planter's peanut while I was reading these, but now I realized just how it was necessary. I mean, I said, what a great story this turned out to be. Yeah. And it does. This was an anniversary issue that absolutely deserved to be celebrated as an anniversary issue. And strangely enough, if you look at the cover, there's just a little tiny blurb on the bottom that says special, abnormally large issue. No giant banner. See what I did there? Yeah. It says issue 300. And we're building towards a payoff, and as we're about to find out, I think we get it.
Absolutely. So we get into Incredible Hulk 300, Days of Rage, and this is what we've been building up to. We were building up to the Doctor Strange Hulk encounter. We got that. Doctor Strange can't do anything about it. At least he wasn't able to then. Now it's time to bring in all the New York heroes to come in and try and contain Hulk. First thing we see is Daredevil is seeing this child. He's on the streets. He's about to get trampled to death due to Hulk's destruction. He goes in there. He saves him. We see this shield start attacking Hulk with napalm on the top of a roof. And Kate even realizes that Hulk at this point is a monster. He can't be saved. Like, she's even on board with killing him at this point. Hulk starts destroying these shield hover flyers with a water tower. Spider-Man flies in. He starts saving them all. He's with webbing. You got all the agents that he's saved. We got the black uniform Spider-Man. And then finally the warehouse roof collapses in under Hulk as it's been on fire. But it's game time, Joe. The entire Marvel universe of heroes that are at the disposal are here to save the day.
Yeah, as Doctor Strange watches on and plans, but it's great because exactly what you said. It's like you're reading this and you're like, oh, it's Daredevil, oh, it's Spider-Man, and it's executed perfectly. You see the people, falling from, the shield's planes there, and then it goes. You have to turn the page, and then that's Spider-Man, saving the day. So like it's just so well thought out and well paced like that with the reveals.
When you're reading a modern comic, you're like, where's Luke Cage? It feels like he would be here at this moment. He never shows up. Everybody shows up in this one.
Yeah. I do want to mention that not long, or right around this time, was the Byrne Galactus trilogy. And there's a scene where Daredevil's watching what's going on, and Spider-Man comes up to him and says, "About time we got involved, wouldn't you say?" And Daredevil says, "No, we'd just be in the way. What's going on down there, basically is too much for us." Which I always kind of thought was kind of strange because the Wasp was there, but I digress. But at least in this story, Daredevil and Spider-Man, there ain't jack they can do to stop the Hulk, but Bill Mantlo found something for them to do that contributed. And I also want to point out real quick that Gabe Jones must be one tough SOB, because in the issue before, they said as he swats him away, he feels his ribs and collarbone break. And there he is in the next issue on the job, barking orders. Yep. And not since Tony Almeida in 24, going back to work an hour and a half after being shot in the neck, have I seen toughness like this.
His bones would be dust by this point. But we do see, as you mentioned, Joe, Doctor Strange is observing the events from his mansion in Greenwich Village. And he knows, Eric, that Banner is gone. But he wants to stop Hulk without destroying him. He consults the Orb of Agamotto. We see a Hulk emerge from the warehouse wreckage, and he's terrorizing the streets. This wonderful image, he rips up a section of pavement and sends all the police and the S.H.I.E.L.D. officers flying. And then we get a Mayor Cuomo sighting, which I don't think they intended this one, but he calls in the Avengers to assist. And this is definitely, at this point, Breen, an Avengers level threat.
I'm pretty sure that's Koch. Cuomo's dad was governor at the time. He's Mario. Because it's Mario.
That's it. My bad. It was.
No, you're good.
And I said, I'm old. I knew that. So I was there. It's really cool. Yeah, Strange hasn't gotten involved because I said he's still weakened from controlling him in the issue before.
Yeah.
But what he realized the best thing to do now is to find a place to send him to, and that's what he's working on behind the scenes. I love to where The Human Torch is the only member of the Fantastic Four available. Again, continuity. They mentioned that Ben's off-world and Reed and Sue are out of town. And, the Torch, like I said, who, again, modern readers have no concept of what a hero Johnny Storm used to be, because he's playing out all the scenarios in his mind. And he comes to, well, I could go Nova, but that would take out the city as well as the Hulk. So, I said, we don't get that version of the Torch anymore.
But he considered it, Breen. That tells you what a threat he is.
Oh yeah, but but chose not to. And they guess best I can do is, hold down the fort as best I can until the other heroes arrive, which they eventually do. But but not before. I said the Power Man and Iron Fist scene. He catches the Iron Fist and absorbs it and then just sends it away. Yep. And I didn't know Luke Cage could take a shot like this either, because it's usually Ben Grimm you see get knocked through a row of skyscrapers. And so I said, it's go time. And then when the Avengers show up, it's like, man, this what more could you ask for?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, Joe, he dispatches Torch and Iron Fist and Luke Cage with relative ease. The Avengers finally do show up, and Hulk is he's impervious to anything. They're trying to subdue him, using their powers. They're doing this and this and this. And finally, somebody that can meet his might on the battlefield arrives. It is Thor. And we get one of the epic Hulk-Thor showdowns right in the middle of New York City. They're fighting blow for blow across the city, and this is a great scene. Well, actually, there's a scene where he knocks, I think, the Vision through the earth. Hitting him on the top of the head that I absolutely love. And then the next great one is when he picks up his own adamantium statue. He goes to hit Thor with it, and Thor uses Mjolnir, obviously, to protect himself. And then when they clash, they send shockwaves through the entire city. Yeah. It's epic stuff, man.
It's it feels like an issue 300. Like it's great. And It does feel a little bit like that, 2/3 page splash of the Hulk and Thor clashing on, was it page 30? Was looks like a little bit of like a throwback to like Avengers Defenders War. Sal Buscema was working on that, so yeah, I do wonder if that was kind of a little bit like, oh, let's throw a little splash image in there that's kind of calling back to that. So
yeah, absolutely great. We finally, Brave, we get Doctor Strange arrives. He's got the Orb of Agamotto. There's only one way to stop Hulk, is Exile. He opens a portal and he sends Hulk into the Crossroads realm where he can no longer hurt a living being. And we see Hulk is like charging at him. He's about to jump at him as the portal closes.
Yeah.
And they found a safe landing place, I guess, for Hulk for the time being. Because at this point, he's so unhinged, he's so uncontrollable that you literally cannot have him in the world.
Yeah, and another example of how well things were done in these days, when they're all standing around after the battle, kind of reflecting. The guy that didn't know how serious the threat was, being Star Fox, found out the hard way. He puts his foot in his mouth again, totally innocently, by saying, why are we all so sad? And he has to be reminded by the other heroes of what Bruce Banner meant to the world and to them. And it's kind of like you realize, and he realizes, oh, okay. And so he's kind of like bowing his head in reverence. And like I said, it's sort of like, this story could only have a tragic ending, which it did. Being
Story
comics,
Hulk,
it would eventually be undone, which it was. But if you take this as a self-contained entity, what a great ending. And it's just, it's kind of like the end of an era, and just so well done. And again, like I said, why Mantlow doesn't get more credit for being the great writer that he was. Yeah, I guess it's because, like I said, some of us need to go back and read his stuff to remind ourselves why. Yeah,
he does a good job, kind of with what Eric was talking about there, Joe, reminding us that the people still see Hulk at this point as a hero. When he's on the top of the warehouse and he's destroying stuff, the people are saying, "Whoa, we must be being attacked by aliens or something if he's doing this to protect us." And then someone's like, "Is he fighting the Avengers?" Like, "Oh, he'd never fight the Avengers," and that's exactly what's going on. So everybody's kind of confused about what was going on there, and it's his descent in essentially madness.
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like a lot of modern writing sensibilities would make that difficult to get across, to have those like conflicting things happening and thought balloons and other things to try to convey that, to make it clear that there is this.
It adds to the mayhem. Like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah,
to the just the frenetic energy that you wouldn't know what was happening.
Yeah, and as we know, there's never been another Hulk story where Doctor Strange was involved in banishing Hulk from Earth. So it's a good thing they never went back to that well.
The Crossroads realm didn't work. They needed to send him to another planet.
But yeah, it's but it is interesting. Bill Mantlo and obviously Peter David and some others did a lot of stuff with the Hulk that I feel like people have gone back to since then and get a lot of accolades for doing stuff that's been done before. And that kind of stuff wouldn't happen as much if people went back to read it. But some of that is also on Marvel, because all these like Bill Mantlo trades, if you're watching this and you're like, I got to dive in. Luckily, the back issues aren't outrageous, because I think Bill started around 245. And had like a 5-year run, so it's not completely outrageous for most of these issues, I don't think. But all the trades are
other than 271.
Yeah,
but that's you don't need that to really first Rocket Raccoon, West Case Wonder. That's the value is like 444 280. 344.
yeah. So other than that, and I mean these 4 issues, if you wanted to get them, you could snag these all pretty cheap, I think.
But the trades are out of print.
trades are out of print for now. I feel like that these are bound to get Epic Collections soon. I think part of what stalls it out is there's at least a couple of ROM appearances and things like, because there was the ROM appearance in 296, which is, you don't need to read it, but you could skip over that. It does a little more setup, but 297 does a perfectly fine job at setting it up for you. So
yeah, this just omits 296.
Yeah.
So you'd have to find that issue because the ROM storyline is heavily referenced at the beginning of this because they're saying that we've got that on top of this, the dire wraith threat, and then the Hulk reverting back to savagery.
Yeah.
So that's and you're right. Like I said, that's the reason why this probably hasn't come back in print is it's probably slated for an Epic Collection. I mean, it's virtually the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Of all the milestones I've ever read, Incredible Hulk 300 is like up in the top 3. I was like, they normally deliver something, but this thing delivered everything. I was like, my God, like what? This is the most insane movie I've just ever read in my life. I would love to see this on the big screen.
No, it's fantastic. There were a lot of good milestones in the 80s, like also going over Iron Man 200. That one, it's not as grandiose, but it sticks with you at the end when they're like, so what happened? And then Tony just goes, somebody lost. And you're like, oh, it's such a good line. Oh, my God.
You take that, take Iron Man 200, juxtaposed with Hulk 300, and you get the opposite ends of the spectrum. Yeah. 200 was bringing Tony all the way back. Yeah. Hulk 300 was taking Bruce all the way out. And again, there's just how good Marvel was at that time. Oh, and Thor 350 didn't stink as a milestone either.
No, that was pretty.
When you get Thor, Loki, and Odin teaming up, which that was not commonplace in those days.
Yeah.
And then Loki turned on him immediately again. But
it's my favorite. It's my favorite Loki.
Yeah.
It's time to screw everybody over.
Absolutely.
The universe would be fine if I didn't do this now, but it's in my best interest to make sure that they cause mayhem. So this is wonderful. Definitely got to get back into more Bill Mantlo. Really enjoyed this story. We are going to hit DC next time, Joe. I think we're going to do Teen Titans.
Yeah. We're going to do New Teen Titans 23 through 25 in annual number 1, which is the team's first real encounter with Blackfire, rather.
Nice.
Yeah, so
that will be good. After reading I Am Not Starfire, it's going to be perfect.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are going to be like, I need to know more about Blackfire after reading that, and
they're waiting for it.
No, exactly, and it's right after they dealt with Brother Blood. It's God, you reread
Brother Blood. That's a good one.
Yeah, you reread a lot of these things, and you go back and you start realizing stuff like, oh my God, this was good for like years in a row with very few, like New Teen Titans. There are very few dips in that first like 4 years. It's,
I'm going to be honest. When you said, when you reread, I thought you were using that as like an adjective to like destroy something. Like Riri Williams.
No.
It was like, reread the character.
No, but no, New Teen Titans and got so much of that stuff, and the Legion stuff. I'll go back and read that, like when Paul Levitz took the book back over in the early '80s, and or it's probably like '82, around then, and then you just go, like, how are there's so many issues in a row that are so good?
No stickers. All right, Bree, do you have any final words about this Incredible Hulk story that we got? Or any takeaways? I know you said you hadn't read it in a while, and it sounds like it was good for this. It was chicken soup for the soul.
Yeah, it's, again, wasn't happy as it unfolded. Now, through the lens of history, I realized how good this story was. I'm still not a fan of the next year after that because it was kind of not my thing, but getting to that point, I'm very glad I revisited that. Another stellar suggestion by Mr. Corallo.
Thank you.
Glad we did it. And also I said, for those watching this, go back and read the entirety of the Hulk with Bruce Banner's brain. Started with issue 272. See how he got to that point. There's some really good stuff along the way also.
Absolutely. Joe, do you have any final words about Incredible Hulk 297 to 300 or anything else kind of about the run?
It's fun. If you like fun, if you like good stories, if you like things like Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, or you like what Al Ewing's been doing in Immortal Hulk, you should like this kind of stuff. This is it's not just a smash fest. There's a lot of weird, cerebral kind of stuff going on, and I think, if you like that stuff, give it a chance.
Oh, may I say one more thing real quick? The Secret Wars miniseries was out around the same time. The Hulk in that series was about 2 issues before this story starts. So the continuity was so tight that a miniseries that was made basically to sell toys still had exacting continuity from what was going on in the rest of the Marvel Universe.
Yep.
That's how you do it, folks. This is a lot of fun. Cannot wait to talk about Teen Titans. I love Teen Titans, so that's going to be great. And we'll see what we talk about Marvel-wise after that. Appreciate it, fellas, and we'll do this next week.
Sounds good.